who've been joining us for the past 3 webinars and now the 4th one. And also for those who've been able to join today for the first or second time. It's really great to have you all virtually on board, which is really cool. So we're going to get started with today's topic. And today's topic is about writing. And there's so much we could do in terms of writing and talk about in terms of writing. But we're going to focus during this webinar on ideas, tips for thinking of how to make writing more engaging and fun, being that it is one of those skills that oftentimes students sometimes find a little bit more boring or hard to engage with. So sometimes it can be a challenge. And we'll also look at a couple of ideas for activities that are a little bit more in line with 2017 and which would naturally also make writing a lot more engaging for students. So we'll be doing both of those, mainly those 2 things today. And just like other sessions, the first thing I'd like to do is go over the agenda with a quick check-in, and then we'll talk about what's the purpose behind teaching and learning writing, which may be different for different learners, different people, different contexts. And then we'll be maybe talking a little bit about your previous experiences. We'll look at the tips and then some sample activities and then a couple of takeaways. So just to get started very quickly here, and before we look at that actually, I want to do a quick little check-in. I already heard a couple of voices, but I really, really would love, it's always nice that it's not just my voice out there, but that we just quickly hear who's here. So maybe I'll say out your name and you can turn your mic on and just say who you are, and so everyone gets to hear you and where you are right now. That would be great. So then we also know that you're alive and your name is just not just sitting there. So why don't we start from the bottom up? Victor, why don't you go ahead and greet everyone?
Hello everyone there. I'm Victor from Jinotega. I'm here just having fun, and I want to know how my students can have fun when they are writing. So that is curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Valeria, I know that you don't have your mic, so that's fine. If you want to write something in and say hello to people, you can do that. Sarah, what about Sarah? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah from Guatemala. It's nice and it's been interesting sharing and listening and participating in this webinar. So, nice hearing you.
Thank you, Sarah. It's always great to hear you too. Okay, and then I see something that says Roosevelt Institute. Yvonne, is that you? Is that someone else that's connected to through the Institute? No?
Roger, that's me, because I'm using my cell phone to use the mic and using the computer to watch it, yeah.
Awesome. So why don't you go ahead and greet everyone, Yvonne?
Hi, everybody. I hope you are doing fun, doing great in your sites. And I want to learn more about teaching writing. I guess for me, it's maybe the most difficult skill. And then as a teacher, it's difficult. So teaching or learning writing is difficult. So I want to learn more and more ideas on how to do this fun. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Yvonne. Mila, why don't you go ahead?
Mila, she typed that she doesn't have mic, so because she's teaching now, yes, she's listening. Mila?
I sent a message because I won't be able to speak, just listen. Because I'm in the middle of so I'll just listen, sorry.
Okay, that's fine. We'd love to have your ears here then. That's okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
At least we heard your voice once. That's fine. Thank you. Alicia Contreras. Alicia, are you there? Would you like to say hello to people? No? Oh,
Nah,
okay,
she
I guess
doesn't
Alicia.
have mic. Valeria and Alice, remember, they don't have mic.
Okay, Maria Luisa's, okay. Awesome, thank you.
Leda is here. Leda, welcome, Leda.
Welcome, Lev. I don't know if you'd like to greet people, Lev, if you have your mic on. We're doing a quick little check-in. No, I think Leda doesn't have a mic, frankly. If she doesn't have a...
The icon.
That's okay. That's okay. And I think I see Mary connected. Well, Mary, if you'd like to greet people.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, you guys. There's a bit of background noise where I am, so I'll probably stay muted. But it's nice to be here. How many people are here? I can only see a little thing that says check-in with a very cute picture.
11.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. It's very nice to be with you. Oh, I see. Now I can see. Awesome. I'm in La Fortuna, and it is a cloudy day here, but kind of warm, and I'm sitting here with one of our teachers from Central West Blumenau, Maggie, and happy to be able to be with you guys.
Okay.
I'm going to mute because I think I've got a lot of noise.
Okay, thank you, Mary. And thanks. If anyone else joins along the way you'd like to check in, just please let us know. Okay, guys. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to start thinking about is starting with this quote of writing is the painting of the voice, which is really interesting to think about. I personally find that when it comes to writing, I really need to find that special place inside of me that gets me excited and inspired to start writing, especially if it's something that you're not as used to, or culturally it's not something that you do as much. So it does need that extra little motivation sometimes. And this quote for me personally is one that I really love thinking about. And it's so true that oftentimes, and we use our voices to say what we want to say, to express what we want to express, to share, and it's great that we do have a voice normally. But there are other ways of expressing. There are other ways of sharing and connecting and interacting, and one of those for sure is through writing. And I like thinking of writing as the painting of my voice. So what is it that I want to paint and share with other people is something that I find really inspiring to think about. And every time I get to an opportunity to write either more creative writing or more traditional writing, the question I ask myself oftentimes is, how am I going to paint this today, and what's the painting I want to share with others? Or sometimes just with myself, what painting do I want to share today? And that's something I'd like to encourage everyone to think about, and a nice little metaphor for thinking of writing and as a way of finding that special place from where writing might start and begin. Okay, so let's get started. And the first piece I wanted to talk about was the purpose for teaching and writing. I find that one of the main reasons behind oftentimes writing being such a challenging skill is that we don't really know why it is that we're writing or what we want to learn writing for. Sometimes it's just randomly a part of a program, or it's just one of the 4 skills, so we do it. And I think if we do a little bit more thinking and reflecting about it, and we have a clear understanding of why it is that we're writing, how it is that we want to write, what do we want to do, then it'll be a lot easier to be able to prepare that for our students and also to guide them in the art of writing. So I have 5 questions that I'd like to start with. One is, why do you teach writing in your classroom? So what is that purpose behind teaching in your context? And again, for different places, it will be very different. For someone who wants to learn English to travel, perhaps it might be a little bit different than someone who wants to who's a business person and needs to write very formal emails and letters often, there's a different approach to it for sure and a different motivation for writing. So what is it that's the purpose behind your writing in the classroom, or and the way you teach writing, what you want to teach? And then also, do you find that your students enjoy practicing the writing skills or not? How do you go about teaching writing? What writing activities do you have your students practice? And what are some challenges? So these are 5 questions I want to let you all sit with for, I don't know, about 30, 40 seconds. So it's going to get quiet, and that's okay. Quiet's good sometimes. It's going to get quiet. And I want you to think about these questions, and if one stands out more for you, then think about that question. And then we'll check in about 30, 45 seconds and see what your thoughts are around these questions, okay? So take about 30, 40 seconds and think about these questions. Okay then, so I'm going to open it up now for comments and just to hear a little bit about your thoughts. And again, it could be about any of these questions, or that you'd like to talk about and share your experience around what's your purpose for teaching writing, and what does that look like in your classroom perhaps. So who would like to share a comment? Go ahead.
Oh, I would like to share about what we do.
Please, Sarah, go ahead.
And what we have noticed is that after the English programs the students have taken, they go to different programs, university, or higher academic levels, and they get there, and we have realized that not all of them have this academic writing process clear. So what we have changed, and I am referring to the Access program, is that we are working with the academic process, academic writing process with them. And they start since the first year with very basic things. They start all the process just writing words, sentences, and until they finish with in the formal essay. What we do is that they take a writing class every week, at least an hour, and they also have a journal that the first year they are studying with us, they are doing it in a notebook, like physical journal, and second year we have moved that to online journal, and the journal is between the students and the teacher. So we have 2 things: the class where they do develop the writing process, but also journal to develop writing fluency with the students. So that's how we have worked with the students during 2 years, the 2 years that they were with us in the Access program.
Okay, Sarah, do you find that your students enjoy this process of learning how to write, or do you find it's they struggle with it?
Oh, it is hard for them in the beginning because they start seeing how to structure things, and they don't even have that in Spanish. So for them, it's really hard to start in the process. It has taken a lot of work from the teachers to create the context of why it is important for them to learn how to write something. So it helps when teachers create a context and they create projects where students see the need of why they will need to improve and do something for writing. So let's say they have a project in which they have to send a letter to the mayor of the community requesting for help for any project they are doing. So in that case, they see that it is important, so they get interested in doing that. But it's been hard, and it's been difficult for them to start getting introduced in the process because they don't have that developed even in Spanish.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's I think a really interesting point about. You mentioned something about them finishing the program and then go into the university and realizing that they're not ready for academic writing and for more intensive writing, I guess. And I think that is a reality in many places and in many of the contexts in countries and where learners are learning English as a second language and then writing not necessarily being the strongest skill that is practiced and developed, and then realizing that when they really need those writing skills that they're lacking. And like you said, Sarah, I think it is a matter of a process of it needing to be more scaffolded and writing needed to be a little bit more practiced and worked on in the classrooms from early on in the programs. Oftentimes writing becomes a skill that lots of programs start dealing with not until students are in a high beginner intermediate level, and sometimes that's a little bit too late in terms of them being able to practice it at the same degree as they practice speaking and other skills. So it is sometimes a challenge, and it's a matter of finding ways of integrating writing more, and also it being more than just taking notes or more than just writing little paragraphs. Sometimes it doesn't move beyond the paragraph, and then when they have to write a bigger essay or something a lot more formal, it's difficult. So yeah, I agree with you, Sarah. It's really true. Let me see, maybe Victor, if you want to share your thoughts about this.
Can you listen to me, Roger?
We do, Victor. We can. Thank you.
Okay. It is because there's too much noise in my background. Teaching writing is one of the most difficult things that I have faced because, well, as Sarah said, like the process is difficult. Sometimes because the students don't have the basis to start a writing course because I don't know what is happening in our public high schools, like they don't know anything about grammar. So you have to start like teaching them the grammar part, to start developing paragraph. Like teaching like academic writing at the university is difficult too, because there's like a change of, like, you have to take into account the culture. The way you write in our country is different to the way we write English. I don't know if it makes sense, but it is like a cultural shock, I would say. The way I teach writing is like I asked, once we did a project, like I asked my students to write a newspaper, and they did it. Like we had the headlines, and then we had the pieces of news they gather, and then they started to make the newspaper. I also asked my students to write poems, because that is the way where they have to use, like synonyms to write well. And I also like to work on acrostics, because they have to write words with different letters. And I don't remember what else I do. But the challenges are like as I said, like teaching writing is really difficult. Like you have to start from the very beginning to start teaching writing. That is my thought.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Victor. And you actually mentioned a couple, or one of the activities I wanted to share with you all later, so about the newspaper. So thanks for that preview. Okay, so let's start talking about, I don't know if there's anyone else who wanted to share something, but I think that's pretty much.
Valeria wrote something to help. Valeria said to help our students to develop their writing skills and not just be focused on the production part of the language, that they can write their opinions and ideas.
Okay, thank you, Franklin. I just saw the text.
Let me share something that I'm working on.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm teaching a TOEFL preparation course. It's a bilingual school here in Managua. They are ready to start university in the States or in Europe. But for these students, they have been taking English since pre-K. But writing is something that they hate, they don't like. So what I did was something that I wanted to make a change in the classroom. So because these teenagers, they speak English, it's a bilingual school. So what I did was I brought the video of Wilbers. Wilber is a former student of Access Program in Nicaragua. There is a video about Wilber's life. So I brought the video to the classroom. The conditions of Wilber are very different to the conditions these students have in their classrooms. So when Wilber learned to speak the language with no electricity or no cleaning water service, but he learned the language. So I brought the video, we saw the video, and then students were talking a reflection about Wilber's video. The following class, I invited Wilbers to come to the classroom, and Wilber was talking, First of all, the video, then I invited Wilber, and Wilber was sharing with these students his experience about learning the language and the opportunities now he has. And then my third part of this was writing. The writing essay was my reflections after Wilber. And it worked. The writing was very different because they saw the video, they saw the character of the video, the actor of the video, asking questions and then writing. I think it really worked. It was a good experience for Wilber and for my students.
Thank you, Franklin. That's awesome. And I think one of the reasons why it sounds to me like it definitely worked was because you managed to link and integrate the writing piece, in this case a reflection, to something else that they were working on. Because oftentimes writing is done as something isolated. Students come into class and we're going to have them do a writing test. There are 5 topics on the board, choose one, write 200 words or whatever. And then it's something isolated that doesn't seem to have much purpose to it. But what you're describing, Franklin, is something that is integrated and links to something that had lots of meaning for them. And I could see why they would be really motivated.
Okay.
Thank you, Franklin. Okay, so we're going to continue now, and now we're going to start talking about and thinking about different tips and ideas for making writing more fun and engaging. And oftentimes this idea of making something fun and engaging sounds like magical, right? It's a secret little pill that I'm going to give you and things are going to be magical and fun. And it's not necessarily like that. I find that in order oftentimes for things to be fun and engaging, there needs to be a certain organization to what we're doing. There needs to be a solid foundation that can allow for this fun and excitement to flourish. If we walk in and things aren't clear to us as to what we're doing, or students aren't clear about what they need to do, then it's really hard to find that joy in the midst of confusion, right? And not knowing what to do and what direction to go. So a lot of what we're going to talk about has also to do with the foundations of making sure we have things set up so that the writing can happen more freely and in a more meaningful kind of way. So we're going to look at the first, and this is similar to like a couple of webinars ago, we were talking about, I think, reading. And in a similar way with writing, I think one of the most important things is that we show a sense of passion and that we show excitement towards writing. If as a teacher, again, we come in and writing is this boring thing that we have to do, and we're doing it because it's part of the book, unit 12, page 6, we have to do that activity. And it feels like something that we're doing in a rush and we just want to get out of the way, then it's going to be really hard for our students to also engage. Unless they already have this found love and passion for writing, then it's a lot of it is about how we approach it as teachers. And I know that for many of us, being a teacher, there are lots of different roles. And one of those biggest roles is being a salesperson. So the big question here is, how am I selling the art of writing? How am I selling the writing test that we're going to work on? How am I demonstrating lots of passion towards this task? And I think that's a big question to ask ourselves and a big aspect to monitor a little bit more in a classroom. What am I demonstrating towards writing? And is it something that students are picking up on? Is it something that's helping them think more about getting excited about it? So that's number one. Number two is comes down to also asking students what they want to write about. It's really hard sometimes, and a lot of this has to do with working with textbooks and adapting textbooks and the curriculum that we get sometimes. But I don't know how many times I've had to work with a textbook or a lesson plan that was given to me where they were asked to write about, I don't know, to write about why they think Tina Turner was a great singer. And half the students were like, who? Who are you talking about? And no, they want to write about Justin Bieber, or they want to write about, I don't know, One Direction. In that sense, the question is, are we providing students with material that is something that's exciting to them? No one wants to write about something we don't enjoy. I would find really hard to have to write about soccer or even make a post on Facebook when I don't watch soccer. It's not something that I like. But if you ask me to write about tennis, you'll probably have a Facebook profile with 100 posts and videos and links and my thoughts and comments, because it's something that I really enjoy doing, something that I enjoy watching. So, and I think what we want our students to develop are their writing skills. It's not, I feel, as important what they're writing about. It's more important that they're writing about something that they are passionate about. So another second question to think about. Number three, also making sure that these materials are level appropriate and challenging to the degree that they feel motivated to work, not overwhelmingly challenging where they'll start shutting down. But if you come and ask an intermediate class to write 2 sentences about what they did last weekend, that being a bit too easy or way too easy for them, it's not something that's really going to engage them. We really need to think about, is what I'm asking students to do, or is it what we're working on at a level that's really going to challenge them a little bit? That right level of challenge, which I know is really hard to find sometimes. I know lots of times I've come in and I'm like, oops, this is a little bit too easy, or oops, this is too difficult. And then in the moment, it's about how do I adapt this to help fit the right level. So third piece to think about is that level of challenge and appropriacy. Number 4 is, and this has a little bit to do with what Frank was talking about, with writing not being something that's done in isolation. And Sarah was also talking about the process of writing, and it not necessarily, it's really hard when writing just becomes an isolated task. But instead, if we really help students prepare for writing, which means, one, how are we going to get their attention? How are we going to get them excited? How are we going to help them brainstorm? But really making sure that it is more of a process and not so much an isolated task. And I know this webinar is not really on process writing, but Sarah and Yvonne were also mentioning the importance of academic writing and students being able to prepare for that. And I think maybe on another webinar or another place, another training, it'd be really important to think about process writing and how we can guide students through a framework, a process that is not only for academic writing, it is also for sure for creative writing, for any kind of writing, but that guides them through that process of brainstorming, thinking about the topic, getting excited, getting ideas, doing research, talking about it, and then starting a first draft, editing, revising, another draft, more editing, revising, and thinking about that process not as a very traditional, this is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, you have to do this like this, but making it more exciting. So when students have to edit each other's papers, for example, it not having to be, here's your paper, here's mine, check it, give it back to me, but rather being something where they can do something more dynamic with it. It could be they have to take the writing and they get 3 different colors, and one color is for something that they really love, another color is for something they're not sure about. You know, adding a little bit more spice to it that's not just, here, take, I check it, it's okay, good, change this, verb to be, right? So making that, the idea of process writing a little bit more engaging. Let's move on. And I'm going to quickly go through at least one more slide before we open this up and we get to hear other voices. But I want to get through at least the next slide. Okay, guys? So hang in there with me, and then I'll open it up for opinions and thoughts in a second. So number 5, which is for me one of the most important things that I currently think about when I think about writing, is using current and authentic forms of writing. I feel like in many ways it's really easy to fall behind in a sense. There's always so much going on and so many new things and new apps and new ways of connecting online and resources that it's hard to fall behind. But the truth is that for all of our learners, especially our younger learners, teenagers, university students, they are on top of all this stuff. So when we come in and, okay, open up your notebook, and now we're going to take out a piece of paper and write, and they're like, when do I really do this kind of writing? Maybe some people have a journal and do that kind of writing, but most of it is nowadays through emails. Lots of us use WhatsApp on an everyday basis, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these kinds of forms of and mediums for writing is what is really authentic now. No, it's what's real. So if that is what's real for all of us right now, then it's hard to justify oftentimes why it is that we're not using that if that's the way in which we write. It's also true that we also have to write essays, and we need to learn how to write complaint letters or love letters, or all these kinds of things are also true, right? And also possible and are real. But the question is, and what I'd like to encourage everyone to think about, and I always ask myself, is how much of this, of the new technology and new ways of writing, am I really bringing to class? And sometimes it's really surprising that I'm not using much of it when it's what's really what people want and what people do. The next one is have students write for authentic purposes. So it's not just the form or the medium via which I'm going to write. So if I'm going to do this through a letter, through WhatsApp, through Facebook, an email, using my computer or a notebook, but also that the purpose for writing is also authentic, and that it's things that are meaningful to us. So it might be that when I want to start the writing process, I ask my class, So what's something that's really on your mind this week? What's something that you've been thinking about? And someone might say, you know what, I really love, this is really true for me, I really love that the new Lady Gaga song that just came out 2 days ago. It's wonderful, I love it. It's the old Lady Gaga, and that might be something that is going to be authentic. Like, okay, can you want to write a review for that song? Oh, that's what you're going to do. Someone else might say, I can't get over the last soccer tournament in Europe, which I don't know the names for, but whatever. And they say, well, can I write about why I think that was the best soccer match ever? Please do. But it's something that's meaningful to the students, something that's new, something that's authentic, and something that's relevant in the present time. So the way in which we write it, but also the purpose for which we write, making sure it's authentic and it's encouraging and exciting for students. 7 already talked about making sure that it's a process and not an isolated activity. And number 8, which I find really important, is getting students involved in the assessment part of writing. I think that would also do a lot in terms of helping create more autonomous learners, more independent learners. So for example, if I have a rubric for a writing piece that it's going to be used for them to be assessed on a specific task, perhaps for sure that they see that rubric before they start the process, and at the end that they get to self-assess their own work, or that they get to have some say in the assessment piece. And I feel that that also would create a greater awareness for the work that they're doing and their own progress. Okay. Now I just talked a lot, people. We just went over 8 ideas or tips for making writing more engaging, accessible, fun for students. So I'd like to open it up now just to hear a couple of ideas. And before I open it up, I see Valeria. Thank you for writing. You've said, I'll read it to everyone. Valeria says, I love tips number 5. Actually, I use a blog. That's another great one. I didn't mention blogs. Called Wattpad. Oh, that's so funny. I like that. This page has teens' short stories. So they read about what they read about that, and then they write short summaries about their opinions in about a paragraph is what Valeria is saying. Yeah, Valeria, that's another great way. And blogs are such a huge thing for almost everything I have to do when it's new. I'm in the Dominican Republic and I want to know where to eat. Where do I go? I go to TripAdvisor, I look for reviews, I go to a blog. Something happened to my computer and I can't figure out what to do. What do? I go to look for a blog or a forum where people are talking about it? So that's another great example. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that, Valeria. Let's see, for the rest of you out there, what are some of your thoughts about these 8 tips we just talked about? Which one would you like to comment on or seems important to you? Okay, let's see who's out there. Oh, go ahead, Franklin.
Okay, you know, something that we have to think that we are teaching 21st century kids. And when you mention about isolated writing, is something that many of the teachers, you know, they do that. They take a piece of paper, write something, or the same routine. So I think that using WhatsApp, any of the social media, if you are teaching simple past and you send a WhatsApp to your student maybe once a week, not every day, but hey, what do you do after class today? Write 2 or 3 sentences. And you know, students will respond immediately because they like that. You know, the teacher is using technology and they will have fun, but at the same time, they will be practicing writing. So write short sentences. So what do you do yesterday? So, and they will immediately answer to the teacher.
Thank you, Franklin. Yeah, it's so true. And it's also interesting because I think that we definitely need to have a balance between, because, I mean, one could also argue, right, I can't have my students only practice on WhatsApp. What's that about? And I think yes and no. Yes, in terms of it's something that's immediate, it's something that's real. You could have a WhatsApp group for different groups of students. If 20 is too much, and you can have several little groups. And it's not that it's only going to be that, right? That's one way of getting them motivated and excited about writing. But there would also be moments in which, yes, then part might have to submit a more formal essay or a descriptive essay for something. But even for that, it could be fun and engaging, right? If you're doing descriptive writing, then it might be that you're going to find the one picture that inspires you to bring peace and find peace in the world. And then you're going to describe that, right, in your essay. It still can be really engaging. But that there's a balance between these more informal settings like WhatsApp and Facebook and blogs and Twitter, and that also there's time and space for more formal writing for sure, right? Both of these being able to go through a process and not as an isolated task like Frank was saying, that becomes really of no substance. Victor, I think you were mentioning something. Do you want to share with everyone what you were writing and elaborate on that a little bit more, Victor? Victor, you there? Oh, okay. I see that you're saying there's too much noise. No, no worries. So I don't know if you all are seeing what Victor's writing, but he said something about, let me go back, about making authentic something real, Victor says, and also writing about interesting topics for students. Yeah, absolutely. That's just so essential, right? That it has to be something that I want to write about, not something that exercise 2, page 7 of a book tells me to write about. And then Valeria is saying it's funny. She likes number 8 because it's funny how sometimes we think that it's only the teacher can check their writing. Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely get the students involved as well and sharing their opinions. And it's also, it takes time, right? But students are more than capable of assessing as well. They just need practice with it and opportunities to do it. So Mac, absolutely, Valeria. We're going to talk a little bit more about activities in a second. Let's continue. We have like 4 more to talk about, and then we'll talking about activities. Oh, of their own writing and others. Okay, let's look at number 9. Okay. Number 9, integrating writing with other skills, and I think we kind of talked about that a little bit. Integrating, and Franklin offered a really nice example at the beginning of the webinar. But that idea of writing being able to not necessarily exist on its own, which it can, but it also being connected to a topic that we just had a wonderful discussion about, or connected to a listening we just heard and worked thoroughly with, so that it feels like it's connected to the rest of the learning, and also that thread of whatever we're working with continues, and hopefully that helps us keep our motivation up, right? And the other piece that I like to think about is the idea of arts. I think writing is such an amazing art that oftentimes we forget to include that aspect of it. How can I make my writing more beautiful? How can I play with my writing, have fun with the writing? How can I make it more poetic? I think Sarah or Yvonne earlier, no, Victor actually was talking about poetry and using poetry for writing. So really adding other skills and other dimensions of learning to writing, and not that it's on its own. And other piece, physical activity. I think it's sometimes also really easy to forget that we need to move and we need to stay awake, alert, engaged. And oftentimes with writing, you get the piece of paper or you're in front of your computer and you have to do all this work without moving. And it's hard to stay focused for more than 20, 30 minutes without being able to move, doing something physical. So whether it's in the classroom or outside of class, really trying to motivate the incorporating more physical activity. So an example of that in the classroom If we've just done the whole brainstorming and outlining, maybe the next activity is to stand up, mingle, talk with different people, and share your brainstorm as you have to move around and interact. It might be that we're going to play a charades game that will help us learn new vocabulary that we might include in our writing. After we do our first draft of the writing, perhaps we have to get up and act out our favorite part of what we just wrote. Some different things that help us really include physical activity, so it's not just that one-dimensional sit and write. I'm going to read a couple of these comments because if not, and please do continue writing the comments, but I'm going to include them, not wait too long, so not I'm going to forget them and can't go back. So Victor is saying, yes, I like that one. The idea of integrating listening to a topic so that students can write about it. Valeria is saying pen pal too. Teacher Alicia, maybe you guys can connect and have each other write each other. That's also really exciting. Victor saying pen pal works, and for sure, it's a nice way of making it real. And that idea of, it's almost like retro nowadays to write a letter and send it in the mail. We don't really do that, but it's almost like it's what used to be a normal everyday kind of thing is now like a magical fun kind of thing. So it might be that you have to write a letter to Alicia's class, sends letters to Victor, or Victor's class, or Yvonne's class, I don't know. And then you interact. That's a wonderful idea. Thanks for sharing. And Yvonne says, I love the idea of integrating physical activities while writing, playing a game and writing about it. Absolutely, integrating games and just fun ways of sharing. Okay, and then number 11 is use music in the background. I find that, and this may be different for different students, it might be that some like it, some hate it, but overall I find that, again, this is another way of adding other aspects to writing. And this might not be that we're listening to, I don't know, Donna Summer's I Will Survive song, or Ricky Martin's Living La Vida Loca. Maybe that kind of music might be a little bit distracting, maybe, for most people. But that we might play nice, soft instrumental music, perhaps music with no lyrics, but something that it helps you get inspired as you're writing. And it's really amazing how music can touch different senses to help you find different messages and different ways and styles for writing. So I would definitely encourage experimenting with music. Number 12, I think, is really important, and this has to do with assessment and evaluation, which is not overcorrecting students' writing. I don't know if this has happened to you, and it might be that most of you here actually don't do this, but I, as a learner, many times when I was in high school and college, would turn in a paper, and when I would get it back, it looked like a sea of blood. It was, and back then when everyone used red, and I could barely even recognize my original writing because everything else were teachers' comments, opinions, and corrections. So the question with that is, what would be a healthy, effective amount of feedback? And one of the things I like keeping in mind is I really try to focus on when I correct papers or do assessment or interact back and forth with the paper, that I focus on what we're learning in that moment. If we're focused on the present continuous and people are describing things that they do, and then someone happened to use passive voice, which we haven't really done yet, I would probably just leave that alone and not go there, because it's, one, something that I'm not even aware of, and two, I can't focus on everything. So I'll say for this class, we're really going to focus on this aspect of grammar, this aspect of tone, this aspect of the formatting, this aspect of meaning, etc., vocabulary, and that we focus on that. And then it might be that at some point, if someone really needs to work on, I don't know, a very formal essay that you need to submit to get into a program or university, a master's degree, then maybe that needs to have a little bit more detailed feedback. But for our everyday ESL classes, I feel it's important that we don't overcorrect and that we focus on a specific or a few different aspects of writing, and that students, of course, are aware of that. Okay, we have two more to finish up with the tips. One is using fun writing tools, and I think this is One of the things that I personally find most engaging about writing, one day perhaps coming in and let's say instead of writing on a piece of paper, you have to write on a napkin. And the napkin is then going to become part of a graffiti wall, or perhaps you come in and you have one of those big pencils and someone takes turns having to write with a big pencil, or I don't know if you've seen those pens that have 4 different or sometimes 8 different colors, and that they get to play with colors, or that the writing, instead of being on a piece of paper, then it might be on a postcard that people are going to send each other, or give out, or a thank you card, or a gratitude card, or let's just celebrate you kind of card. So really trying to think about what else can I use that's not just computer or pen and a piece of paper, my notebook. Trying to integrate different kinds of fun writing tools. And the last one for today, and there's so much more we can talk about, but I think 14 was a lot. But anyways, I narrowed it down to 14, is the idea of making sure that whatever students create or write is published. And by published, I don't necessarily mean that it's published as, like, you know, an official article in a paper or a book that's been, you know, published by an official publisher. But the idea of publishing meaning that students somehow are getting to share what they wrote with not only the teacher. A little bit more publicly, it might be with the group that they're working with. It might be with someone at home, their families, friends, someone they love. It might be with another class at the school where they're working. But it's really hard sometimes to stay motivated with writing and about your practice and development of writing when I do a paper and yeah, it goes through a process, I got feedback, and then once I'm done with the final product, it gets a grade, 90, great, 70, B plus, and then that paper, teacher writes down whatever grade I got, and I get it back, and that's the last that ever happens to that paper. And then years later, it's just like nothing, right? So how can we find ways to publish what they're writing? Someone mentioned a really nice idea about the newspaper. It could be that they have to read it out loud. It could be that has to become part of a debate that they're going to do the following week. It could be that writing is going to become a weekly newsletter. It could be that they have to, whatever you ask them to write, they need to share with someone they like, and then record their response to their writing. Something where they get to do more than just submit a final paper or a final piece of writing or the final activity. So providing them with opportunities and ways of publishing. Okay, guys. So the next piece we're going to do is move into talking about activities. Now we don't have that much more time. The activities are pretty quick, so we'll go through those quickly. But I'd like to open this up once again because my voice has been going and going and going for a while now. What are some of your thoughts about these ideas? I don't know if Sarah, you'd like to say something, Yvonne, any of you all, Franklin, go ahead.
Hi. As you were saying, you were talking about making sure you involve the students in what they will be interested in writing about. I think that's a key for writing, because if students are not engaged, as you were saying, we are not going to get to the point of why we are doing writing. So from all the tips, I think that's something teachers should definitely consider when planning and creating writing. And of course, being that will be really important for the students to understand that.
Absolutely, Sarah. So that idea of really involving the students in the process and also in the assessment for sure, right? But that they're involved, I think that's really important. Absolutely.
Yes, also in assessing, right? Like I think students have
a lot to do with that. They are the center of the learning process, so involving them will make it very meaningful for them.
Absolutely. No, I remember seeing one a class once that I thought was amazing, the way in which the teacher included the students in the assessment. So what the teacher did was, before starting a process of writing or a sequence in which the final product was going to be a writing task, the teacher had done this, of course, in other classes. So the teacher took an example of a previous student from another class who had done that same assignment, took out his name, of course, and then projected the writing so that the whole class could see it, and then gave each student the rubric that was used for that, and which was going to be used eventually with them too, and said, okay, here's this writing of this one paragraph or one page. Look at the rubric. How would you assess this writing of a student I had in the past? And they had to assess some random work from someone else, and that really empowered them and provided them with lots of insight in terms of how to write their own papers and what to expect from the assessment of their own writing. So that was one great example that I really love seeing and I've done in the past. And I find that it really works in terms of getting them involved. I see that Mary had to say goodbye. It's something that she wrote. Thank you, Mary, for joining us for the time that you could. Thank you, Maggie. I don't know if Maggie, you were there the whole time, but it was great having you too if you were there. And have a safe drive home if you're going home. Okay, guys, let's continue. Just to go through the activities before we have final comments, I guess. So here are some activities, lots of these, and I think lots of ideas and activities that you could use. When I was thinking about it and looked back at material I had, there was like hundreds of things that we could do. There's this wonderful book that if you don't have it, you might Google it, find it. That's called something like, if you have to teach kids how to write, you've got to have this book. And even though it says kids, it's not really just for kids, and it's an amazing book that has lots of writing activities and tasks that are really fun, engaging, and creative. So I would encourage you, again, the book is called, it's from Marjorie Frank is the author, and it's if you gotta teach kids how to write, you've got to have this book, or you got something like that. I'd encourage you to look for it. But I wanted to focus today more on more modern ways of practicing writing and activities for the classroom, because I feel like that's what's needed in this 21st century, in this day and age that we're in right now. So the first one is definitely Facebook. This is, I think, something that is very common, and I understand that lots of teachers oftentimes don't like sharing their personal Facebook page with students, but for this purpose of learning in the classroom, you could absolutely create a separate Facebook profile that is just for the class. I have definitely done that in the past, and then every week I post either a video or a comment, a message, a picture, something, again, what's really important here for me, something that's trendy, something that is really going to get students excited about talking about. So, for example, I don't know, the next season of Game of Thrones is coming soon. So it might be a preview of Game of Thrones, and people have to write in response to the preview, whether they're excited about it and why, what they think is going to happen, predictions, or if they hate the TV show and why, etc. But really something that's trendy and exciting that's going to get them talking. And Facebook is such a, besides free, amazing and accessible, because most students have Facebook. They love it. Why not just naturally use it? The next one is emails, and I think this is more of a within our modern world, it's probably one of the more common and traditional ones of writing emails. And there's so much to learn about writing emails, how to start an email, how to open a sentence, given reasons, closing sentences, ending, how to work with the body of an email. And I think that's something that would be really important to develop and work in class for sure. Or as homework, absolutely for homework too. The next piece is WhatsApp group messages, which I think we already talked about. And the one thing with WhatsApp that I find is that it needs to be organized. It can't just be, here's our group, talk. No, it needs, which is also interesting. I know this class isn't about speaking, but with voice messages now, WhatsApp is also an amazing tool for speaking, for pronunciation. and for having to do little assignments via voice message, but that's another webinar. So really trying to organize it in not so big groups for the WhatsApp groups and giving them a weekly task or a monthly task on WhatsApp where they have to at least participate 2 or 3 times based on whatever the task is. Another one is Twitter. I am not the best at using Twitter, but I think it's an amazing way of doing different things. For people to tweet about their most important learnings of the day, to discuss about something, again, that's trendy or something that's happening. And it's also really nice in terms of being able to connect with students and share online. Another is one that I really enjoy doing and I find that students love is movie or book summaries or reviews. For those who don't like watching lots of movies, there's books, there's movies. You could also add to this songs. So the idea of, so right now Fast and the Furious is probably a huge movie that even though I personally don't like it that much, I find that people love it. It's one of those movies where people either hate it or love it. And either you hate it, you love it, you have something to say about it. So it'd be really exciting for lots of people to be able to talk about their favorite scene from the movie or what things they thought was good, what things weren't so good. And the same goes with a book if, in a way, that we also an amazing way of integrating reading with writing. Another one is creative advertisements. I think this is also really fun. When I've done this, students love it, love it, love it. One way of doing it is giving them a product that's really common. So you might say, we're going to work with, I don't know, Coca-Cola's new Coca-Cola Life product, or we're going to work with the new pizza place that opened up in Managua downtown and everyone's talking about. What do you think would be the perfect ad for this company or this product or this service? Another way of doing it, which I think is also really fun, you can bring in a whole bunch of random objects and you say this object you have to turn into an amazing product and create an ad for it. And then they have to create these advertisements for these products. And I have another couple. This is one that I also find, and I think with writing, the other piece that we really need to spark in students is excitement. We need to spark inspiration, dreams. And one thing that people love dreaming about is traveling. So it might be to prepare them for this, that you show a video of backpacking trails and or trips that people have been on and the circuits that they've done, and then they got to do a whole discussion about it. So it's speaking, it's listening, and then they have to write what their backpacking plan would be if they could backpack through Europe or through South America or even through their country within Nicaragua, right? But sometimes the bigger the dream, the more exciting what you produce. So I think that's really important to think about. And this is one idea. Another one is what I think, I don't know if it was Victor talked about, yes, the newspaper, newsletter, students creating highlights of the week, highlights of the month. Both, this could be both what's happening inside their classroom or what's happening in the world. Anything from entertainment and Hollywood to more serious and topics like potential war and what's going on between Russia and Korea, the USA, but what are the highlights of what's going on in creating a newsletter or newspaper. Making comics is also a wonderful thing where you would bring in comics with blank bubbles. So instead of having to, don't forget to open your fortune cookie, yes, will you marry me? Yes, she married the cookie pad, blah, blah, blah. It could be a blank bubble and they have to write in the dialogue for these different things. Students love this, they have lots of fun with it. And the last one I wanted to include and just mention is along the lines of finding inspiration. It could be something really emotional, inspiring. I remember once one of the best writing classes I've had, which also became speaking, was listening to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. So we listened to I Have a Dream and we talked about it, and then their writing task was to write their current I Have a Dream speech. His was done many years ago. So now, 2017, what would be your I Have a Dream for the world? What would you wish for the world? What would you want to see? And then they had to write out a speech, and they went through the whole process of brainstorming, process and sharing, editing, speaking about it, playing with it, getting creative. And then after they came up with their I Have a Dream for 2017, my 2017 I Have a Dream, inspired by Martin Luther King, then they had to, it became speaking, where they had to read it out loud, and it became like a big culminating way of publishing that speech with their classmates, or I mean, if it could be in the bigger audience, wonderful too, right? Or with small groups if that's what's possible. So really thinking about, and that's just one example of ways in which writing can be more inspiring. And if it's inspiring, we want to write. If it's inspiring, we want to share, we want to connect, we want to be part of the world through our writing. So what are some of those things that you can do? What is the question that would leave you with? And I think that is the last one I wanted to share with all of you. So I know it's an hour and like 5 or 10 minutes now. So, and I want to see a couple of the comments. Mila, thank you for joining us. Victor, yeah, the ads are fun, lots of fun. And I Have a Dream is, and I think writing needs to be either fun, creative, or inspiring. Sometimes it's all of those, but at least have one of those. Make sure writing is either fun, creative, or inspiring. When you have one of those, most likely it's going to be a great class. Students are going to love it, they're going to be engaged, and they're going to write their hearts away. So with the example of I Have a Dream, it's more of an inspiring type of writing. So
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Yvonne.
Is it a good idea to show students the differences in writing, I mean different in styles or the way of writing in English and in Spanish in this case, because we all speak Spanish. And in some way we learn how to write in Spanish. So is it a good way to, when teaching writing in English, to let students, that will be like a starting point or an idea, a foundation in what writing is, so we don't start from zero. So we have an idea on what writing is and how to write in Spanish. I know there are some differences between English and Spanish, so my question is it a good idea to let them students know that writing in English is different from writing in Spanish?
Thank you for that, Yvonne. And I absolutely, I'd agree with what you're saying. I think it's really important, and I think one of the things that we had not mentioned yet was, I think in different styles of writing, different examples of writing, different formats, genres for writing. And between English and Spanish, there's absolutely a difference. In Spanish, we tend to write a little bit more, with a lot more flowers, I would say. There tends to be that circling around oftentimes, whereas in English, it tends to be more of a directly get to your message more quickly kind of writing. Not to say that it can't be also, with more creative and beautiful in that sense, but I think it's important that students are aware, absolutely, of the differences, because if not, they might struggle a lot with writing in English the way they would write in Spanish, and then not be successful with that. Yes?
Roger, a friend told me like in English you don't use difficult words. You use simple words to say what you want to say. Is that clear?
Yeah, I think that depends on the context, Victor. I do find that oftentimes in English you don't necessarily complicate yourself in the sense that you want your message to be clear. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's not difficult words. Oftentimes we tend to use words that are more commonly used, is what I think I would say. Whereas but again, I think that depends on the style too, because I do know lots of people who like to write in a more poetic, exciting, fancy kind of way, and that's great too, right? But I would say in English there is a tendency definitely to use words that are really commonly used, right? And there are wonderful websites where you can look up how common and how much a word is actually used in real life versus words that aren't as used. I would say that. I don't know if I would say that it's more difficult or easy, but definitely in that sense, yes. I don't know if there are any other final comments before we wrap up. I think I've wrapped up pretty much on what I wanted to share with all of you. Any other questions or comments out there? Okay, so I guess we have no more questions or comments. I would definitely love to thank everyone for being part of this webinar and for being part of the past 4 webinars that Mary and I have been doing. It's always really exciting. I love seeing your names pop up every time I see all of your names, and I know you guys are have always been with us live, and lots of you get to listen to the recorded version of the webinar, but I really appreciate all of you that really put a lot of effort into being present and participating in the live recording of the webinar. So thank you so very much. And like Franklin and Yvonne were saying, this is definitely not going to be the last webinar. Definitely not going to be the last time we all get to see each other and get to share the wonders of learning and teaching English together. So thank you all very, very much. I don't know if Franklin or Yvonne, you all have anything else to add or say before we say goodbye?
Thank you, Roger, for sharing your ideas on teaching and writing. And as I should say, we're going to continue with this type of training online. And then Franklin will be sharing the recording version, so teachers who didn't have the chance to be here online today, they can watch. And or if you have a chance to watch it again sometime later, so it will be great. Or share with other teachers. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you, Roger and Mary, for being part of our trainings in Nicaragua. And we would like to see more of your experience sharing with our teachers here. And see you next time. I hope to see you in Nicatisol in July. And I'm planning to have a webinar, something like a pre-webinar online before Nicatisol to encourage teachers to participate in Nicatisol. Okay, thank you, Roger, and thank you to Mary, please.
Thank you, Franklin, and thanks to everyone. You guys have a great, great, great rest of the day.
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.